New products are the lifeblood of any organization, but new product development is risky, and many new products fail. In this chapter, we look at the process for finding and growing successful new products, as well as managing products through their life cycles. Product is a key element of a firm's marketing mix, and it's central to the creation of value for the consumer. Core product consists of all the benefits the product will provide for consumers. And as we discussed in Chapter 1, a benefit is an outcome that the customer receives from owning or using a product. So wise old marketers, and some wise young marketers too, will tell you a marketer may make and sell a half-inch drill bit, but a customer buys a half-inch hole. This tried and true saying reminds us that people buy the core product, in this case, the ability to make a hole. So if a new product, such as a laser, comes along that provides the outcome in a better way or more cheaply, the drill bit maker has a problem because marketing is mostly about supplying benefits, not just creating features and functionality. And benefits are the foundation of any value proposition. As companies add new products, they can satisfy the changing needs of current and new customers. So every year, firms flood consumer markets with thousands of new products in hundreds of categories. Some of them are truly remarkable, stand out, gain popular acceptance, and even change the way we live. Others come and go, barely noticed, or have a brief life and narrow fan base. Some arrive on the market with well thought out marketing plans, have been developed with rigorous discipline. Others are happy accidents or surprise successes that are discovered by consumers who make them popular and successful. Planning for existing products have their challenges, but planning for new product development and launch has far more unknown and uncontrollable factors. New products carry with them the riskiest, most costly, time-consuming, and ultimately rewarding aspects of marketing planning. No wonder some companies actively resist new product development as a strategy. In spite of the risks and challenges, some organizations consider innovation, new product development, and continuous improvement to their product lines to be the most critical thing they do, though. And economies, businesses, and people rely on a steady stream of new products to the marketplace to improve lives and deliver a standard of living. So, in this particular chapter, we consider several concepts important to understanding new product development, beginning with what it means to be a new product. If you think back to Chapter 2, we identified 4 marketing growth strategies related to products and consumers. 2 of them, product development and diversification, revolve around new products. In product development, we focus on our existing consumers, trying to find ways to get those who are already fans of our organization or brand to extend their purchases to related product offerings. In diversification, an organization has recognized that in order to achieve its goals, it needs to not only develop or market new product offerings, but also to develop or access a new customer base. When they add new products to their offerings, firms can create and deliver value more effectively by satisfying the changing needs of their current and new customers, or simply by keeping customers from getting bored with the current product or service offering. Sometimes companies can identify problems and develop products that customers never knew they needed. When sales of a product have reached the point that customers' needs have been met, the market's considered to be saturated. At that point, future sales growth is unlikely. If everybody has a microwave in their home, it can be difficult to convince them that a new model is worth the effort or expense. Innovation can make new models of products more attractive and encourage customers to replace them more frequently, but even this impact tends to decline with time as needs are met. You can make microwaves better and better, but eventually people lose interest if their microwave satisfies their needs. Without new products and new product innovations, the value of the firm will ultimately decline. Today, microwaves not only boast convection oven capability, but now newer technology integrates speed oven capabilities as well, giving consumers the flexibility of essentially having double ovens at their disposal if they so choose. Firms often create a broad portfolio of products in order to diversify their risk. It makes intuitive sense that if some products in a portfolio are doing poorly, others may be doing well. So tapping into innovative ideas allows companies to create new products to add to their existing portfolio and enhance firm value better than any single product can. Firms with multiple products are better able to withstand external shocks, including changes in consumer preferences or intensive competitive activity. Whether fashion, entertainment, or even the wellness industry, some areas are driven by newness and innovation. In some industries, technology or engineering results in actual improvements. In others, consumers are drawn to what is new or trendy, and marketers must have a constant stream of innovation and design to keep and attract consumers. Without innovating or constantly changing in these industries, firms would cease to exist very quickly. In the case of apparel, fashion designers produce entirely new product selections a few times per year. Fashion industry relies on trends and experiences, short product life cycles, and most sales come from new products. Some industries, like software and gaming, rely heavily on constant new product introduction, and most sales come from new products as consumers are constantly wanting to be challenged by another game or wanting to experience the most recent version. Without innovating or constantly changing in these industries, firms would cease to exist very quickly. Sometimes it's due to a changing market dynamic, and it isn't really related to competitive activity that spurs innovation. A changing industry or market dynamic can affect all players. For example, there's no manual typewriter manufacturers left in North America, as the overall market for the first manual, then even electric typewriter, declined precipitously with the launch of the first word processor in the 1980s, followed by rapid adoption of personal computers with document software. The organizations that survived did so by innovating into other product areas. The expression "in dog sledding, unless you're the lead dog, the view never changes" applies to some industries as well. Areas in which there are consistent and huge leaps in technology, performance, materials, or methods demand that competitors keep up if they want to succeed. For some organizations, innovation is not just a matter of organizational goal or survival, it's about leadership. Being the player that's constantly on the leading edge of what's new and leading the category forward is a really dynamic and robust strategy for some industry leaders. To them, success is measured not just by sales and profit, but by being recognized for leading innovation in the category. So, some new products are introduced to satisfy vendors. P&G, for example, changed its formula for Tide to make it more concentrated in order to satisfy Walmart's desire to have it take up less shelf space. When I worked at Christy Brown, we were constantly retooling our packaging lines and developing new packaging sizes to at first meet the demands of Costco when they first became a dominant force as a vendor in the retail landscape, and later we were constantly looking for ways to bring forward innovative ideas to keep them interested in our company as a supplier. Diffusion of innovation is the process by which the use of an innovation, whether a product or as a service, spreads throughout a market group over time and other various categories of adopters. Consider digital cameras. When the digital camera was first commercially available in Japan by Fuji, there was a first person to buy it, followed by a second, and so forth. And gradually people in Japan and worldwide put away their film cameras and adopted the new digital format. Although digital cameras have changed radically since their introduction, the idea of capturing images on microchips remains the same. Already the digital camera is starting to follow the same declining path as film cameras. New technology will replace the old, and someday the last digital camera will be sold. That idea that new technology and the products that utilize the technology spread through markets over time is, as I just mentioned, called the diffusion of innovation. Studies on how technology diffuses through markets have been especially important to marketers because these studies have identified relatively distinct groups of people with demonstrated differences in how readily they adopt new products. Truly new product introductions, that is, new to the world products that create new markets, can add tremendous value to firms. These new products are called pioneers or breakthroughs because they establish a completely new market or radically change both the rules of competition and consumer preferences in a market. The Apple iPod was a pioneer product. Not only did it change the way people listen to music, but it also created an entirely new industry devoted to accessories such as cases, AirPods, docking stations, and speakers. Pioneers have the advantage of being first movers. As the first to create the market or product category, they become readily recognizable to consumers, and they often establish a commanding and early market share lead. Studies have found that market pioneers can command a greater market share over a longer time period than later entrants can. Not all pioneers succeed, though. In many cases, imitators capitalize on the weaknesses of pioneers and subsequently gain advantage in the market. Because pioneering products and brands face the uphill task of establishing the market alone, they pave the way for followers. Because the pioneer is the first product in the market, it's often a less sophisticated design, and it may be priced relatively higher, leaving room for better and lower price competitive products. Adoption of innovation is the process by which consumers accept or do not accept a new product innovation, and you can see it illustrated on this slide. It defines not just whether or not consumers take on a new product, but how they do it. And from this, we can also see where the opportunities and challenges for marketers exist. Just like every other step of the new product process, the adoption phase is another opportunity to either succeed or fail with consumers. For most new products, consumers go through a distinct set of decisions and steps, similar to the decision-making process we talked about in Chapter 4. In the classic decision-making process, we rely on consumers having some knowledge, familiarity, and experience with the products they're choosing. Some of the options in our decision-making process could include new products. However, for the most part, it does rely on consumers recognizing their own needs and options. With new products, marketers can't rely on those same factors. Consumers could be unaware of the entire category. They may not recognize their need or their decision-making criteria. So what follows is more of a guide than a hard and fast rule. As in the new product development process itself, each stage is a chance to either win or lose the consumer. But one thing we do know from years of new products is that not all consumers go through the adoption process at the same time. The model shown has been developed through decades and thousands of new product launches. It represents who the consumers are at every stage of the adoption process. It recognizes that even with a massive global launch, not all potential consumers for a new product will adopt it at the same time. There are big differences in consumer attitudes towards new product adoption that marketers need to be aware of. All of the consumers in the adoption curve become adopters over time. And your place on the curve doesn't define how passionately and strongly you ultimately feel about the product or whether you'll abandon it. But it does tell us something about the consumer in the segment and their acceptance of new products or their resistance to them. The general names given to these groups as they adopt new products over time are shown in this exhibit. While innovation curves aren't always bell-shaped, the shape does capture the idea that adoption begins slowly, picks up speed, tapers off, and then declines. And the actual shape of the curve will vary depending on the product. So for marketers, the main value of the diffusion of innovation framework is a set of generalizations about the nature of the people who adopt innovations at various points in time. The first group of people to buy a new product are referred to as innovators. They represent about the first 2 to 5% to adopt an innovation. Innovators tend to be young, willing to take risks, and social. They often through extensive use of social media. The next roughly 13 to 15% to adopt an innovation, they're called early adopters. Early adopters have high levels of opinion leadership, meaning that others tend to look to them for information about new products. They also tend to be relatively young and well-educated. The two categories across the middle of the curve make up the mass market and represent about 7 in 10 people who will ever adopt an innovation. This large majority of adopters is divided into early and late halves. The early majority tends to be more risk-averse than early adopters and chooses to wait until the bugs are worked out of product technology. These people are often well-educated and somewhat older than early adopters and innovators. They actively look to early adopters for product information. The late majority tends to be skeptical of change, which is likely related to somewhat lower levels of education and social standing compared with the early majority. At the tail end of the adoption curve are laggards, and laggards make up the remaining roughly 16% of adopters. Laggards tend to adopt innovations as a matter of necessity, often when the prior technology is becoming difficult to find. Laggards tend to be older than the other groups whose purchase habits often are driven by a sense of tradition. A final group to mention, although they're not included in the curve, are the non-adopters, because non-adopters represent a portion of the market that never adopt an innovation. And generalizations of non-adopters they're difficult to make because the reasons for not adopting innovation can vary widely. Few final points regarding the adopter categories. First, people who are innovators tend to be that way across a set of products, especially related categories like electronics. They like to be out front in the category. They're willing to pay relatively high prices in the category as well as in other related categories. And second, laggards also display their characteristics across many products. They like to be cautious. And finally, the categories between are more difficult to generalize. Behavior can be somewhat more specific to product types. Using the diffusion of innovation theory or adoption cycle, firms can predict which types of customers will buy their new product or service immediately after its introduction, as well as later as the product gets more and more accepted by the market. With that knowledge, the firm can develop effective promotion, pricing, and other marketing strategies to push acceptance among each customer group. So different products diffuse at different rates, and various factors increase the speed of diffusion of a new product. And those include product characteristics like relative advantage, compatibility, observability, complexability, and trialability. We're going to look at those in a couple of seconds. Relative advantage describes the degree to which a consumer perceives that a new product provides superior benefits. If a product's perceived to be better than substitutes, then the diffusion will be relatively quick. The phone replaced the telegraph because it offered a clear benefit. It didn't just rely on dots and dashes, but could transmit voices. In the case of the microwave oven, consumers in the 60s didn't believe that the product provided important benefits that would improve their lives. You have to realize that it wasn't until at least the 70s that traditional male and female family and household roles had become highly predominant. By the late 70s, that perception had changed because more women had entered the workforce. So in the 60s, quite a few more women had all day to prepare the evening meal. They didn't really need the microwave. Yes, because at that time, there were very few males in the house husband role. In the 70s, however, when many women left home for work at 8 a.m. and returned home at 6, an appliance that would magically defrost a frozen chicken and cook it in 30 minutes actually provided a genuine advantage. So having a clear, distinct, meaningful point of difference or advantage from whatever else in the category is also critical. And while there are success stories of knockoffs, the greatest success rate in innovation is where there's a real benefit that's core to the category, which is provided to the consumer. In the first case, compatibility refers to the product itself. For example, innovations that improve, attach to, or otherwise affect an existing product are examples of compatibility, where the developer has consciously worked to ensure that the new innovation works with the existing technology. But compatibility is also the extent to which a new product is consistent with existing cultural values, customs, and practices. So in this case, it refers to the consumer. Is it compatible with the consumer's life? For example, do consumers see the microwave oven as being compatible with existing ways of doing things? Hardly. Cooking on paper plates? If you put a paper plate in a conventional oven, you're likely to get a visit from the fire department. So by anticipating compatibility issues early in the new product development stage, marketing strategies can address problems in planning communications and consumer education programs, or there might be opportunities to alter product design to overcome some consumer objections. Observability refers to how visible a new product and its benefits are to others who might adopt it. The ideal innovation is easy to see. For example, for a generation of kids, scooters like the Razor became the hippest way to get around as soon as one preteen saw his or her friends flying by. The same generation observed its friends trading Pokemon cards and wanted to join in. I don't know if you guys were part of that craze when you were younger. In the case of the microwave, it wasn't quite so readily observable for its potential adopters. Only close friends and acquaintances who visited someone's home would likely see an early adopter using it. But the fruits of the microwave's labors, which was tasty food dishes, created lots of buzz at office water coolers and social events, and its use actually spread quite quickly. Too bad they didn't have social media back then, because if they had, it's a sure bet that the rate of adoption of microwaves would have been a whole lot faster. So back in the day, there were actually water coolers, yes, at the office. Complexity is the degree to which consumers find a new product or its use difficult to understand. Trialability is the ease of sampling a new product and its benefits. So products that are relatively less complex are also relatively easy to try, and those products will generally diffuse more quickly than those that aren't. Many microwave users today don't have a clue how a microwave oven cooks food. When appliance manufacturers introduced the first microwaves, they had to explain that this new technology caused molecules to move and rub together, which created friction and that produced heat. Marketers took an important step in the 70s to speed up adoption of the microwave oven product trial. Just about every store that sold microwaves had to invite shoppers to visit the store and sample an entire meal that a microwave cooked. And finally, consumers began to understand what the product even was and what it could do. And while it's true that some innovations occur suddenly in flashes of insight, it's more common for innovations to result from carefully crafted processes that take time and considerable effort. Most firms employ a systematic and deliberate approach to new product development that begins with the generation of new product ideas, and culminates in the launch of the new product and the evaluation of its success. And you can see on this slide an illustration of the various steps that are involved in the typical new product development process. And we're going to look at these more closely next. In the idea generation phase of product development, marketers use a variety of sources to come up with great new product ideas that provide customer benefits that are compatible with the company mission. To generate ideas for new products, a firm can use its own internal R&D efforts. It can collaborate with other firms and institutions. It can license technology from research-intensive firms. It can brainstorm, research competitors' products and services, or conduct consumer research. Some ideas actually come from customers. Ideas can also come from salespeople, service providers, and others who have direct customer contact. Firms have to constantly scan the environment looking for new product ideas. And depending on the company's strategy, they use different sources. So in the next few slides, we're going to look at some of those methods in more detail. Using internal sources, the company can find new ideas through formal R&D. So for example, Ford operates an innovation and mobility center in Silicon Valley, staffed by engineers, app developers, and scientists working on everything from driverless cars to Works with Nest apps that let consumers control home heating, lighting, and appliances from their vehicles. Chick-fil-A has set up 3 large innovation centers. One of those is called Hatch. It's an idea hatchery where Chick-fil-A staff and partners explore new ideas in food, design, and service. It's a place to ideate, explore, and imagine the future, to hatch new food and breakfast restaurant ideas and bring them to life. Beyond its internal R&D process, a company can pick the brains of its own people, from executives to salespeople to scientists, engineers, and manufacturing staff. And many companies have developed successful internal social networks and entrepreneurial programs that encourage employees to develop new product ideas. So for example, in the US, AT&T has set up an internal online innovation community called the Innovation Pipeline, through which AT&T employees from all areas and levels of the company submit, discuss, and vote on new product and service ideas. And each quarter, the founders of Top Folk Getting Ideas pitch them to AT&T senior executives, and they select the best 3 for further funding and development. And since it began in 2009, AT&T employees have submitted more than 40,000 ideas, and the company has funded more than 80 projects ranging from customer service enhancements to new product offerings. Many companies actually sponsor periodic internal hackathons in which employees take a day or a week away from their day-to-day work to develop new ideas. And those hackathons are legendary, for example, at Facebook. During a Facebook hackathon, it's not unheard of that a few hundred of their engineers unleash their talents in an epic all-night coding session. They often end up with products that hit internal and external versions of the site within weeks. Facebook's hackathons have produced major innovations such as the like button or friend tagging. And these events not only produce fresh new ideas, but they can also boost employee morale and engagement. R&D departments also buy competing new products. They take them apart to see how they work, while marketing is analyzing their sales and deciding whether they should bring out the new product of their own. For many scientific and technological products, firms buy the rights to use the technology or ideas from other research-intensive firms through a licensing agreement. And that approach saves the high costs of in-house R&D, but it means that the firm is banking on a solution that already exists but hasn't been marketed. As an example, small biotech firms frequently license their inventions to larger pharmaceutical firms. A variety of approaches and techniques are used in the process of idea generation. And one of these is brainstorming. And that may seem simplistic at first blush, but there are some pretty sophisticated approaches to brainstorming out there. Many years ago, my employer, Christy Brown, sent me to a week-long course in Cambridge, Massachusetts to a company called Synectics. And that company specialized in just that, learning to properly brainstorm and how to implement and facilitate brainstorming sessions within your own company. And at the time, it was fairly revolutionary. At the forefront of the movement were R&D groups from MIT, realized that I was on the campus of Harvard, not far from MIT, and the good folks from 3M mentioned in your text. Because even way back then, 3M was known for fostering a culture of creativity and giving their employees both the time and the freedom to develop new products and new ideas. So while at Synectics, I was surrounded by people from the 3M company, which in and of itself was actually very fascinating. I brought my training back and new skills to Christy, and for a time led creative brainstorming sessions with our employees to help stimulate and develop new products, packaging concepts, names, etc. That said, we also turned to outside companies to help us with this process as well. And when we did that, we brought consumers into the mix. So in focus group type settings, we held sessions led by moderators with the skills required to get consumers part of the ideation process. Excellent new products ideas and names were often generated in sessions like that, and we involved not only people from our marketing group, but also our engineers from packaging, our product development folks, sales, etc., to sit in the back room because we had no idea where an idea might be sparked from. Companies are constantly scanning the environment for new ideas. As the slide mentions, as much as 85% of new business-to-business products come from customers. And some firms formalize this and actually create processes for collaborative participation with customers and other stakeholders in the new product development process. You're all no doubt familiar with Lego. And in a marketing and innovation coup, Lego has developed an online platform called Lego Ideas, where users can suggest new Lego sets and seek to have them turn into physical products by the company. Lego Ideas enables users to provide a description, create a visual, and specify the characteristics of their proposed Lego set. Then any new set that attracts more than 10,000 supporters in a 2-year period move into a review phase, at which point Lego determines whether it's feasible to turn the idea into a mass-produced Lego set. As part of the vetting process, folks who throw their support behind a proposed product answer a series of questions to determine market potential, such as questions related to perceived price, segments of the market the set might appeal to, complexity of the building of the set, etc. So that approach to co-creation has yielded creative new ideas, including sets targeted to older Lego aficionados like Luke's Diner from the Gilmore Girls and the Big Bang Theory set. It's important to note that co-creation approach such as this is in stark contrast to traditional approaches where firms develop products behind closed doors and send them to market, hoping that customers connect with the intended value proposition of the new offering. In terms of scanning the environment for new ideas, fashion-based product lines often identify trend leaders, and they not only watch them to gather new ideas as well as to suss out whether they're making modifications to the product, which might suggest there's an opportunity to develop a product or an iteration of a product to better suit customer needs. I mean, have you ever modified a product, apparel, or a car? And what did you do to it? At the end of the idea generation stage, the firm should have several ideas that it can take forward to the next stage, which is concept testing. An attractive idea must then be developed into a product concept. So the second phase in developing new products is the development of the concept itself and testing the concept. And though ideas for products initially come from a variety of sources, ultimately the responsibility usually falls to marketers to manage the process and expand these ideas into more complete product concepts, which describe what features the product should have and the benefits these features will provide for consumers. Or, of course, just because an idea is unique doesn't mean it's going to sell. How about the Japanese company Satis that invented an app to allow your smartphone to control your toilet? It lets you flush and lift the seat without touching the actual toilet. But wait, there's more. You can play music through the toilet speakers and store your usage history in a toilet diary to track your progress. As I mentioned at the beginning of the lecture, in new product development, Failures often come as frequently or more so than successes, so it's critical to screen ideas for both their technical and commercial value before they ever see the light of day. When screening, marketers examine the chances that a new product concept might be successful while they weed out concepts that have little chance to make it in the market. Concept testing calls for testing new product concepts with groups of target consumers, and the concepts may be presented to consumers symbolically or physically. Many firms routinely test new product concepts with consumers before attempting to turn them into actual new products. For some, concept tests, a word or picture description might just be sufficient, but a more concrete and physical presentation of the concept will increase the reliability of the concept test. So after being exposed to the concept, consumers then might be asked to react to it by answering questions. And the answers to such questions help the company decide which concept has the strongest appeal. The better a firm understands how customers will react to a new product, the better its chances of commercial success. And for that reason, typically a company allocates resources to develop one or more physical versions or prototypes of the product. Prospective customers may evaluate those mock-ups in focus groups or in field trials at home. A relatively new aspect of the technical development phase of new product development is enabled by the increasing popularization of 3D printing. So marketers in firms as diverse as Coke, Volkswagen, Nokia, and Belvita are engaging customers directly in product development processes through that technology. So for example, as part of Nokia's 3D printing community project, the mobile phone manufacturer made available a 3D printing kit for its customers, enabling them to print out customized covers for one of its smartphones. And Volkswagen encouraged patrons to become their own unique car designers through their Polo Principle campaign, to which people were allowed to take control of the 3D printer used to create the original VW Polo car model via a website. Then the consumers could create their very own version, from which 40 ideas were finally 3D printed and displayed in Copenhagen. Afterwards, the consumer designers had the chance to take the mini car version of their design home. One of the ideas was even turned into a full-size VW Polo, which is pretty cool. And marketers at Trek Bicycles are using 3D printing to both speed up and increase accuracy in developing product prototypes, thus accelerating overall product design cycles. So Trek now produces 4 times as many prototypes as before, while also improving overall speed to market. So prototypes are also very useful for people within the firm. Those involved in the technical development process must determine which parts of a finished good the company is going to make and which one it's going to buy from other suppliers. And in the case of manufactured goods, the company may have to buy new production equipment or modify existing machinery. Someone has to develop work instructions for employees and then train them to make the product. When it's a matter of a new service process, technical development includes decisions like what activities are going to occur within sight of customers versus in the back room, and whether the company can automate parts of the service to make the delivery more efficient. So technical development sometimes requires the company to apply for a patent because patents legally prevent competitors from producing or selling the invention. The legal mechanism may reduce or eliminate competition in a market for many years so that a firm gains some time to recoup its investment in technical development. If the product passes both the concept test and makes it through product development, the next step is test marketing, the stage at which the product and its proposed marketing program are introduced into realistic market testing. This usually means the firm tries out the complete marketing plan, the distribution, advertising, and sales promotion in a small slice of the market that's similar to the larger market it ultimately hopes to enter with full force. And there's pluses and minuses to market tests. On the negative side, market tests are extremely expensive. It can cost more than $1 million to conduct a market test, even in a single city. And a market test also gives the competition a free look at the new product, its introductory price, the intended promotional strategy, and an opportunity to get to the market first with a competing product. On the positive side, when they offer a new product in a limited area, marketers can evaluate and improve the marketing program. So I can't recall if I mentioned to you when we were covering our market and research chapter how London, Ontario is often used as a test market location for companies in Canada. At the time, I wasn't sure if that was still the case, but I did look into it, and it is. So even as of 2021, London, Ontario is still considered the perfect test market for a whole host of reasons that still remain valid after all these years that I've been in marketing. Nestled between Toronto and Detroit, it's not too big, not too small, so its size is attractive. A good market also needs to have a nice variety of characteristics. There needs to be a good mix of demographics, industries, educational facilities. So London has a rounded representation also of ethnicity, manufacturing, healthcare, and technology industries, as well as the University of Western Ontario. And those factors are very attractive for companies to test their products. The introduction of the very successful Tim Hortons dark roast coffee was tested in London. If the product does well in the test or simulated market environment, firm can proceed to commercialization. If not, the firm can fine-tune certain features or abandon the whole project entirely. But even doing well in test marketing doesn't guarantee automatic and instant success in the real world. So at this stage, the product's ready for full-scale marketing and substantial expenses are required, not just for marketing strategies, but also for production facilities, to acquaint the sales force, marketing intermediaries, and also potential customers with the new product. So the very first step in the product launch involves the firm confirming its target market and deciding how the product will be positioned. So next, the firm determines the marketing budget for the first year and the product launch marketing mix, or 4Ps. In terms of the promotion, you have to determine an appropriate integrated marketing communication strategy. With respect to place, you have to ensure there's an adequate quantity of the product available. And with price, you've got to get it right. For timing, you've got to find the right moment for the launch. Once the product launch is in execution mode, the marketer's job is not done at all. The evaluation step covers the assessment and learning from the launch. How's it going? How did it go? What went well? What did not? Why? Is there anything we can do about it? Is there anything we can learn from it? Firms measure the success of a new product by 3 interrelated factors. 1, its satisfaction of technical requirements such as performance. 2, customer acceptance. And 3, its satisfaction of the firm's financial requirements such as sales and profit. If the product is not performing sufficiently well, poor customer acceptance will result, which is going to lead in turn to poor financial performance. And there's a lot of reasons why an initiative may not be successful. So for example, if distribution targets were not achieved because a single retailer has delayed or otherwise been unable to fulfill its role, more effort can be put into moving that process along or redirecting distribution through other channels or partners. If one part of the integrated marketing communication launch campaign can't be activated, or it's deemed to be less effective or important than previously thought, there could be an opportunity to redirect funds and resources to maybe other more powerful areas of the plan. So some organizations engage in ongoing tracking, something we discussed in our research chapter, a process where certain key measures in the marketplace are followed consistently, not just around launches. So for example, many organizations for which image and brand are critical parts of the marketing effort, they may want to track ongoing consumer brand awareness or advertising awareness and information about their ongoing usage habits with the product. And that information can be used to assess the impact of the major initiatives on overall brand health. The number of areas and the ability to address them in the short term are actually quite few. But the marketer must always be cautious as to whether a particular aspect of the plan's execution needs to be adjusted or whether it just needs more time. Just as biological cycles progress from birth through growth and decline, so do products have life cycles. The product life cycle is simply the pattern of growing and declining sales in a product category over time. And the product life cycle is simply a theoretical model that explains in general that pattern of growing and declining sales. It describes the stages all new products go through from product introduction, growth, maturity, and finally decline. The concept can describe a product class, like gas-powered cars, a product form, like SUVs, or a brand, like the Ford Escape. As a product moves through its life cycle, the strategies that relate to its competition, promotion, distribution, pricing, and market information must be periodically evaluated and possibly changed. By understanding the typical life cycle pattern, marketers are better able to maintain profitable products and drop unprofitable ones. All products don't have the same life cycle. Some are quite long. Levi jeans were invented in 1873 and Kraft macaroni and cheese introduced in 1937, while others are quite short, like Google Glass. That's a tongue twister for me. It was basically eyeglass frames with a stamp-sized computer screen attached. And that wearable technology device, priced at $1,500 US, was able to record video, access email, retrieve information from the web, all by connecting wirelessly to a user's cell phone. But even before the product was launched, there were concerns about whether or not it was safe to have an electronic device that emits radiation so close to the head. There were also privacy and piracy issues, given the built-in camera. The design itself was unattractive. Consumers seemed unclear also about the product's benefits. So as a result, Google Glass was on the market for less than 2 years before it was discontinued in 2015. So the product life cycle adopts the producer and marketer perspective of how sales of new products unfold versus the adoption cycle that we looked at, which was from the consumer's perspective. It's important to point out that the PLC depicts the life of an entire product category. That is, all the competing brands that offer similar sets of benefits. In other words, don't think of the PLC of the iPod. Instead, it's more useful to think of the PLC of the MP3 music player category, which would include many brands besides Apple. PLCs are affected by the competition that comes from multiple brands, which is why explaining them at the product category level is the preferred approach. And a typical PLC graph is shown on this slide. PLC curve is actually the same shape as the diffusion of innovation curve shown earlier. They both show similar information, but again, from different perspectives. Diffusion of innovation focuses on the changing nature of people adopting a product over time, while the PLC considers sales, profits, and competition. The introduction stage begins with the launch of the first brand to compete in the category. Introduction takes time, and sales growth can be slow. Well-known products such as frozen foods, HD TVs, and electric cars lingered for many years before they entered a stage of more rapid growth. At this point, the pioneering brand has the often brief advantage of facing no rivals. And during this stage, the pioneer wishes to encourage trial of the new product through stimulation of primary demand, which is demand for a product category without regard to brand. So for consumer products in particular, building primary demand relies heavily on advertising, promotion, and establishing distribution for the product, which can be difficult and expensive. The manager allocates a sizable budget for marketing communications like media, advertising, websites, and social media. It's common for advertising to include incentives like coupons that reduce the consumer's financial risk in making the first purchase. And through public relations and experiential marketing activities, there is an attempt to generate buzz for the new product in the media, and through online viral marketing campaigns, for example. Apple typically announces a new product about 3 months in advance of its being available. The media buzz that precedes the launch creates pent-up demand, and people pre-order online or line up at the stores for the product the day it's launched. It's a great strategy by Apple. When launching an entirely new product, price is a major decision for the manager. So if it's too high, consumers could reject the product. If it's too low, financial objectives might not be achieved. Many marketers believed a higher price is preferable, since then it's much easier to lower the price if things don't go well. An introduction, the brand manager must also devise strategies to secure distribution. Financial incentives in the form of discounts and allowances are the norm, and obtaining distribution for new products with new brand names is really challenging. And for that reason, a whole lot of new products are brought to market bearing already established brand names. So when Procter & Gamble launches new oral care products, the Crest name is usually used. And the Crest name provides instant credibility for the product with distributors and consumers. The length of time a product stays in the introduction stage depends on how quickly or slowly consumers adopt the product and on the degree to which sales increase annually. Note also, by the end of the introduction period, a few other companies may introduce rival brands into the marketplace if the product appeals to customers. So there's a real benefit to being the first into the market. The results from setting the standard in the eyes of the consumer. The benefit is a lasting market share dominance even after competitors enter and the product moves into maturity. The growth stage of the PLC marks the start of very rapid sales growth in the product category. The growth stage is a period of rapid consumer acceptance. Innovators continue buying, and early adopter consumers now enter. So sales are rising rapidly, as are profits. An example of a product in the growth stage is the Instant Pot electric pressure cooker. That was introduced actually in 2010, but it really had a slow, steady growth during their introductory phase. Word of mouth from social media and influential bloggers actually had it create an explosive rise in demand for this versatile multi-cooker. It was actually designed by a small Canadian-based company. I had no idea. The device became the single largest selling item on Amazon by 2017. Several competitive brands generally enter the market at this stage, each seeking a piece of the action for itself. So the manager of the original product has to continue to market aggressively to protect and build market share. The emphasis of the activity in this stage shifts from generating awareness to creating preference. And during the growth stage, the product is offered in more sizes, flavors, and models. And many of the activities implemented are designed to encourage consumers to prefer a particular product or brand. Depending on the degree of competition, the organization maintains or perhaps increases its marketing investment at this point. Advertising messages focus on product differentiation, like unique selling points, and they're intended to give consumers a sound reason why they should buy a particular brand. So since more information about the target market is now known at this point, messages and media selection become better suited to the target. Therefore, the marketing activities tend to be more efficient at this stage. A greater variety of promotional incentives are also used because it's important to get people to make both trial purchases by continuing to generate awareness of the product and repeat purchases by encouraging preference and loyalty. Incentives such as contests, coupons, and refund offers are commonly used to stimulate purchases. Price strategies at this stage remain flexible. That is, they're often determined by competitive prices. If competitors have entered the market with lower prices, the manager of the original product might adjust price downward. How consumers perceive the product and the benefits it offers also influences pricing strategy. If one brand is perceived to offer better value, for example, it's a dominant brand leader in the market, a higher price is possible. Since consumer demand is higher in the growth stage than it is during the introduction stage, distribution is now easier to obtain. In effect, the combination of consumer demand and trade incentives offered by the manufacturer makes the product attractive to new distributors and helps move the product through the channel of distribution. This occurs for two reasons. One, target markets become aware of the product and, assuming it's a good product, begin to buy it. Two, more and more competitors will see the success of the category pioneer and will enter the marketplace and increase category awareness and sales through their own marketing efforts. During the growth stage, some companies may begin to show profitability as they begin to recoup their investments in the product. Indeed, for the category as a whole, collective product profits may reach their maximum near the end of the growth stage. The transition between the introduction and growth stage is often referred to as the tipping point because this is when the product either gains acceptance or must exit the market, and the majority of new products fail at this point. Those that succeed do so in a category that matures and is largely competition that separates winning products from less successful products. In the maturity stage, product category sales begin to level off. The product's no longer new, and it's likely attracted most of the new consumers it ever will. Now it's the late majority who adopt the product, provoking intense competition for market share. Generally, most products remain in the mature stage for a long period of time, so brand managers are accustomed to implementing marketing strategies for mature brands. The mature stage is a stage where rejuvenation can occur. Maintaining customer loyalty becomes a priority. The marketing objective is to extend the life cycle of the product. In the mature stage, retail distributors carefully monitor the sales volume of the products they sell. It's a stage where slow-moving products are eliminated from the shelves. This is now where the concept of category management that was discussed earlier in the book. Remember the Boston Consulting Group's portfolio analysis we discussed in Chapter 2? That's where this comes into play. Recall how firms identify stars, question marks, cash cow, and dogs? Well, wholesalers and retailers want to carry only product lines that are moving at a desired pace. So at the same time, manufacturers start to ponder the possible withdrawal of brands from the market sometime in the future if they enjoy only second-tier status among distributors. In the face of fierce competition, companies frequently implement incremental improvements to their original models. In other words, they work on continuous innovations. A competitive shakeout begins during the early parts of the maturity stage as well. So prices decline, superior brands develop loyal followings, while others start to run out of resources and they start pulling the brands from the market. Some remaining companies begin to enjoy increased profits, even though collective profits for the category have passed their maximum. They often do this by focusing on brand loyal customers who cost less to keep than acquiring new customers. Does that model suggest that every new product is eventually going to go into decline, which is the next stage? Well, to be honest, yes, most do. Some products like Levi's jeans, Molson Canadian, Tide detergent, and Coca-Cola, to name a few, seem to hang around. They may have had development and growth modes and may even be mature, but not in decline. Some products do successfully maintain the mature phase for a very, very long time, but that doesn't mean that they're never going to see a decline. These products constantly invest in marketing activities, variants, and product upgrades to keep the product fresh. And while each seems unstoppable, it's worth mentioning that almost all of these cases, the brands replaced other products at one time that were led in their markets. Some products like Tide laundry detergent can remain for decades in the maturity stage. While small changes to the product occur over time, it remains essentially unchanged. Incremental improvements in cleaning capabilities, environmental friendliness, scent, and packaging have occurred, yet because the technology of clothes washing hasn't really changed drastically in the past several decades, detergent itself probably won't either. Even improvements such as Tide Pods are still variations on essentially the same laundry detergent product. So the product remains in its maturity stage. And by the time products reach the decline stage, many consumers have moved on to the new technology. Brands still competing in the category experience declining sales and profits. And if the company's been well managed, it's also been investing in developing new products so that the end of one product category doesn't mean the end of the. For the category in decline, companies have to consider whether to divest, which is to spin off and sell, or harvest, which is to close and cash out the assets, the investment in their brand before profits disappear entirely. In the decline stage of the product life cycle, sales begin to drop rapidly and profits are eroded. Products become obsolete as many consumers shift to innovative products entering the market. An example of a product in the decline stage is the fax machine. Price cuts are a common marketing strategy in a declining market as competing brands attempt to protect market share. And because the costs of maintaining a product in decline are quite high, the brand manager will start thinking about planning the withdrawal of the product from the market. This is the time to cut advertising and promotional expenditures to maximize profit or minimize potential losses, and to generate funds that can be invested in new products with greater profit potential. Companies don't have the resources to support all products equally, and the wise ones have products at various stages of the product life cycle so that marketing strategies can be effectively managed within financial constraints. Strategically, companies can take several approaches to extending the product life cycle, some of which are outlined on this slide. They can try to extend the life of the category by making incremental improvements to the product. Products tend to grow stale after years of being in the market, and that's because customers have adjusted to the features and characteristics that once made the product unique or special. And as a result, the decline of a product is often tied to familiarity and the need for customers to feel as if something old has become new again. That's why adding new features to the product can be an effective extension strategy. So for example, if you're selling an electric bicycle that only allows for 2 speeds, you can add several new speed options to renew excitement in your target audience. Firms can identify and extend into new markets. For example, one of the benefits of globalization is that it's opened up the international market to small businesses in a way that really wasn't possible decades ago. Your company now has access to customers throughout the world, and that's especially true if you're an e-commerce business that does all its selling on the internet. If you've done your market research properly, you'll quickly realize your target audience isn't limited to Canada, but in fact, buyer behavior can be similar across borders. You still have to market to the right audience, but the size of that audience and your access to the audience is now greatly expanded. Firms can look at changing the product's packaging. The style of the packaging may be changed to give the appearance of a new and improved product. Research has found that clever product packaging can help your target audience feel more loyal to your brand. In fact, one study found that 33% of buyer decision making is based on product packaging. So repackaging your product can help it seem new and improved to the target audience. And it can also appeal to prospects that haven't yet become buyers. Packaging includes the colors you choose, the design elements, the size of the package, the words and images you display on the package, and the type of font you use. Other strategies include changing usage. So existing customers can be encouraged to buy more of the product or to use it in a different way. So for example, breakfast cereal is using advertising to show consumers eating cereal at different times of day. Changing the price. The price can be lowered to allow new customers to buy it. Changing the place. Products can be sold in distribution channels, different ones, to gain more sales. Changing the promotion. Perhaps different advertising or sales promotion techniques can prolong the life of the product, giving it a new image. Theoretically speaking, all products go through 4 stages of the product life cycle. And while the PLC curve is assumed to be a bell shape with regard to sales and profits, in reality, each product or service has its own individual shape, as it's just a question of how quickly they move from stage to stage. The type of product affects variations in the shape of the product life cycle curve. We can see that in the figures shown in this exhibit. In Figure A, the curve depicts a high-learning product. A high-learning product is one with a very large introduction stage. The introduction stage takes very long because consumers need to be educated. High-learning products are fairly complex, and it takes time for the consumer to learn the benefits they would get from the product. Personal computers experienced a high-learning product life cycle curve in the 1980s. People thought that computers were only useful for certain businesses to store data and keep track of sales records. It took time to understand and learn how computers are necessary for almost every household. Remember the microwave example I used earlier? It spent much longer in the introduction stage than products that were even spawned because of microwaves, like microwave popcorn. Microwave popcorn was a low-learning product, as once introduced, people already understood its purpose, how it could satisfy a need and benefit them. They already knew how to use it. Pardon the pun, there really wasn't much of a learning curve involved. 2 other relatively common variations of the PLC are called fads and fashions, which are illustrated in Figures C and D, respectively. Fads are products that are introduced, grow quickly, don't really mature, and then they decline and disappear quickly. Therefore, as you can see in Figure D, the PLC resembles something like a spike. The stages occur in very rapid succession. The thing about fads is they're rarely recognized as such while they're available. It's only years later, in retrospect, that they're called fads. A fad could have something to do with clothing, leisure suits, miniskirts, bell-bottom pants, collectibles like Pokemon Go and mood rings, or lifestyle fads like fad diets. Tamagotchis and the funky handheld virtual pets, they were a fad. Tamagotchi toys achieved enormous success quickly, but where there's a spectacular rise in sales, there's usually a spectacular fall. So Tamagotchis lost their popularity, as did other digital toys that came onto the market like Furbies. But the company sold over 76 million Tamagotchis worldwide and made a fortune in the process. Do you remember fidget spinners? In the summer of 2017, these inexpensive yet addictive plastic toys were being spun by children, teens, and adults around the world. And while fidget spinners are still available, sales have cooled dramatically. Back in my day, 2 huge fads I recall were pet rocks and clapper balls, or as we more affectionately refer to them as fuddle-duddle balls. Go ask your grandparents, maybe, or older parents if you have them, about that one. So such fads typically occur with very inexpensive products that are cheap to make and cheap to sell. That way, investors can recoup their money quickly before sales tumble as the fads fade away. Fashions are frequently cyclical, meaning that category sales may rise and fall several times before the fashion disappears altogether. And the reappearance of a fashion once thought to be out of style is often termed a retro look. Generally, the second or third iteration of retro styles tend to be very short-lived compared with the first. So that's it for chapter 8. A lot to take in, but now you have it in a video form. So if you have any questions, reach out to me and let me know. Bye-bye.